Check out this video Lonzo Ball put on his Instagram story on his way to work. Ran into teammate Lance Stevenson in traffic. Gotta love LA traffic.
And then just pulled off on him. Same exact thing happened to me. I was driving through New Jersey, I'm not gonna say where, and I drive up on this iced out Bentley, and I'm like, whose could that be? And I look, and it's my man Chris Canny rocking to some Indigo girls.
Come on, man. Stop it. Stop it. No, you didn't see all that.
Did you hear you were rocking out to?
I heard.
Yeah,
the Indigo girls.
That's how you
Tell me what album.
That's how you know his story ain't true, Jenna.
Well, maybe.
That's how you know it's not true.
Maybe I got the album wrong. I don't know. I just know Canny was doing like air guitar, little air drum.
No, Nick. No. That's a nice try. You dribble, you shoot. You hope for the best, but no, not on that one.
I'm just telling you what I saw. No. Maybe it was a different 6'9" black guy with a Bentley in Jersey. I don't know.
Oh, you can tell I'm 6'9" while I'm in the car.
What? Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you were wearing a uniform. Said C cancer.
Time for stories to start your morning. Last night, Kawhi Leonard dropped a career-high 45 against the Utah Jazz. He went 16 of 22 from the field. He made 13 free throws. Nick, how impressive was Kawhi last night?
Kawhi was spectacular. Shot 73% from the field. It was a Kobe Bryant memorial stat line. 45 points, 1 assist in the game. Kawhi doing it on both ends for a team that's been, without question, one of the 3 best teams in the league thus far. The shocking thing to, I think, a lot of people is just Kawhi's 3rd career 40-point game. He has, dozens of games in the mid-30s, but hasn't been able to crack that 40-point mark much. Last night's career high.
Well, I don't think he's ever been in a position as a player to have to do that. He had a better supporting cast in San Antonio in terms of guys that can score the basketball at a high clip. In Toronto, they're asking him to do more of that in terms of being a scorer, and we all know he's got the tools to get it done.
He's been so good this year, all year.
Moving on to the Lakers now. LeBron has been ruled out for tonight's game against the Thunder. This will be the 4th game that he's missed since injuring his groin last week. Lakers are 1-2 without the Kings so far. Nick, how does the team look without LeBron?
I mean, they've had 2 games that came down to the very end. They won 1, they lost 1, and they had 1 game they didn't play well at all. They've been okay. I thought the last game they played where they closed it out well was a great confidence builder. Brandon Ingram played one of his best games of the season. After this Thunder game, they get the Knicks at home, then at Minnesota, at Dallas. I thought he was going to miss 3 to 5 games. Now seems more likely it's going to be closer to 5 to 8 games. We'll see how the Lakers do in this stretch.
Yeah, they just need to give LeBron James as much time as he needs to get healthy from that groin and be 100%, because you don't want this to be something that's lingering throughout the regular season. And with all the parity in the West, with everybody being right there, 4 or 5 games of each other, you got time to be able to let LeBron James heal up. So you need to be patient with that.
All right, moving on. Last night, Urban Meyer coached his last game for Ohio State in the Rose Bowl win over Washington. Quarterback Dwayne Haskins put on a show. Tossed 3 touchdowns, threw for 251 yards. Our own Chris Carter was there. He tweeted that he's certain Haskins is heading to the NFL. Kenny, what'd you make of Haskins' night yesterday?
Well, I mean, a lot of people were talking about Haskins potentially being the #1 pick, and I only think he solidified that in that performance in the Rose Bowl. This is a chance for a national audience to be able to see his skill set on display against Washington, and I think that he showed out. I mean, you can see that he's got a live arm. He can make all the throws, but the thing that's most impressive to me is his poise in the pocket. And you can tell that whatever stage he's on, it's not going to be too big for him. To me, because there's always a demand for a quarterback, and he seems like he is the clear-cut #1 quarterback of this upcoming class. If he declares, I think Dwayne Haskins showed why he should be the #1 overall pick.
The only knock on him is lack of experience, that he only a redshirt sophomore with only 1 year starting. I can't remember a player who improved their draft stock more over the final quarter of the season. Like the Maryland game, which shouldn't have been as close as it was, but he brought them back in that game, was spectacular. He whooped Michigan. The Big Ten championship game, he was great. And yesterday, Ohio State won this game after the 3rd quarter. He didn't make hardly any mistakes for the first 3 quarters. With Justin Herbert going back to school, who else would be the top quarterback taken? If he is going to be the #1 pick, though, you think that means Arizona is going to be trading the pick to a team?
Oh, no doubt. Arizona's not giving up on Josh Rosen. I'm just saying that somebody is going to trade up to #1 just because you don't have a lot of options in this quarterback class.
He's the top quarterback on the board.
Moving on to the New York Jets, who have themselves a quarterback. They're looking for their next head coach. After moving on from Todd Bowles earlier this week, they're expected to interview former Packers head coach Mike McCarthy and former Texas Tech head coach Kliff Kingsbury. Both could potentially help mentor future of the franchise, Sam Darnold. All right, Canny, would either of these guys be a good fit for the New York Jets?
I think Mike McCarthy would be a good fit just because you're not projecting him in that role. Mike McCarthy spent 13 seasons as the Packers head coach, and he had 125 wins and a Super Bowl championship on his resume. With Kliff Kingsbury, you're talking about somebody that was a former collegiate head coach at Texas Tech, lost his job, and then signed up to be the offensive coordinator at SC. I still think is a learning curve in terms of going from the college ranks and being a head coach to the pro ranks and being a head coach. You're talking about the difference in coaching kids versus grown men.
So, Nick, what would be the appeal then for Kingsbury?
I don't understand the appeal for Kliff Kingsbury as a head coach. I get it as an offensive coordinator. If the story was the Jets are thinking about bringing them both there, McCarthy is the head coach, Kingsbury is the offensive coordinator, because the knock on McCarthy from the people that study football in a way I don't, and his route combinations and the lack of diversity in the offense, that's the knock on him. Kingsbury obviously can coach offense. We know that. But he was 35-40 at Tech. He was 19-35 in his career in the Big 12. He got fired at his alma mater, where he's a legendary player and where he was one of the most popular people, probably the most popular person in the city of Lubbock. And he got fired. He got an offensive coordinator job in college. Now he's an NFL head coaching candidate. I don't understand it. Here's the appeal of Kliff Kingsbury. Kind of feels like Sean McVay. But Sean McVay had come up in the NFL. I know he's young and they both have the same similar beards and they're both good looking.
What do I call him?
Like, he's sexy Sean McVay. Spicy looking, I should have called him. But like Sean McVay was a quarterback's coach, was a coordinator, was in the NFL. And Sean McVay had the benefit of taking over for Jeff Fisher, where it felt like anything new would be welcome, and had the benefit of #1 overall pick Jared Goff, who we had seen, people had already written him off as a bust. So like there was very little expectation, very little pressure, if you will, in that spot, if such a thing exists in an NFL head coaching job. I don't understand the Kliff Kingsbury thing. And I wish him well. But if you don't show that you can be a quality collegiate head coach, the failing upwards is bizarre to me. He took a job at SC as a coordinator. That's a perfect spot for him. Why the Jets would be considering him for a head coach, I don't understand.
Is there something to who would be a better fit for Sam Darnold? Do you want a guy that's been in the league for a long time, who's worked with a future Hall of Fame quarterback, or do you want someone who's coming up in the ranks, willing to take chances, willing to see what he's got? I don't know. Is there something to that, to who he'd fit better with their quarterback?
Well, I think they're looking at it and seeing that Kliff Kingsbury could probably implement a style of play that's conducive to today's game, right? That takes advantage of the rules and defenders not being able to control the middle of the field. We see these wide open offenses with the Los Angeles Rams, with the Kansas City Chiefs, and young quarterbacks being able to thrive in this basketball on grass type of scheme. But in terms of being able to stabilize the Jets as an organization and make sure that this team plays with the level of discipline that's required to have success in this league, I can't trust Kliff Kingsbury to be able to do all of those things. And then the Jets have a funky hierarchy in terms of how the general manager and the head coach both report to the owner rather than the head coach reporting to the GM.
Right.
Just with those kind of dynamics, I don't know that I want to have a rookie NFL head coach in that type of situation. That's why I lean toward McCarthy.
And the best thing for Sam Darnold is not necessarily a coach with a certain scheme. The best thing for Sam Darnold is a coach that's not going to get fired in a couple years. The best thing for Sam Darnold
is just a good coach.
Is a good coach that's going to generate stability. But I do think everyone that's looking for the next Sean McVay, or maybe the next Matt Nagy, who's similar in McVay, who's a young guy, got his chance, he's an offensive mastermind, needs to remember that Sean McVay hired Wade Phillips, who's been a coordinator and coach in this league for 50 years to run his defense. Matt Nagy has Vic Fangio, who's one of the most longest tenured defensive coordinators in the league. He might lose him to a head coaching job this year, but both of those guys basically said, I know I'm the head coach, but my job's the offense. I'm going to hire someone 20 to 50 years my senior to take care of the defensive side of the football. If you go with a guy like Kliff Kingsbury because you love what he can do with your quarterback, you also need to find someone that's going to take care of the other side of the ball. And I don't know, you know who'd be great at that? Todd Bowles. Yeah. But I don't know that he's going to come back as coordinator for the Jets. So I think people have to work this all the way through and also understand, like, I'm old enough to remember remember Mark Trestman, when he was the sexy coordinator, even though he wasn't the same age, it was his guy from the CFL was going to revolutionize things. And it didn't work out. I don't know that everyone's going to find their version of Matt Nagy or Sean McVay.
All right, let's move on to the Giants now. It's hard to pull a ton of positives out of this season for them. They finished the year with 5 wins. It was 2 more wins than the year before, so that's a positive, I guess. Odell Beckham Jr. had an up-and-down year, battling both an aging quarterback and an injured quad. Reports today the 49ers would be interested in taking him if the Giants were willing to move him. Nick, should Big Blue listen to trade offers for OBJ?
I'm going to say same thing here I said with Antonio Brown, but for different reasons. Of course you should listen. Of course you should listen. Amari Cooper got a first-round pick. Khalil Mack got 2 first-round picks. Odell Beckham Jr., with cost certainty, you know what the contract is, and the signing bonus has been paid. So he actually would be making around on a per-year basis like Sammy Watkins money.
Yep.
And so it's actually a good contract. Even with the coming off an injury and suffering an injury that cost him last quarter of the season, he received had over 1,000 yards receiving, and at times looked like the best quarterback on the Giants in addition to the best wide receiver on the Giants. Everyone should be interested in Odell, and if you're the Giants, you do have to look at the world through this lens. Eli's probably your quarterback again next year. When Odell signed that extension, he knew it was 1 more year of Eli. He got sick of Eli 3 games into it, and then he sat down next to high out of his mind Lil Wayne and Josina Anderson and aired him out. Like, what version of Odell are you going to get if next year the quarterback room is Kyle Lauletta and Eli Manning, and that the team is once again stuck in this neutral? I don't know. So would I be in a rush to trade him? No. Would I listen to offers? Would 2 first-round picks get the job done? Absolutely.
No, you have to listen to offers. That just makes sense. You got to do due diligence if you're Dave Gettleman, their general manager. But when you consider where the Giants are at, I think they're going to be stuck in this rut, being a 5-11, 6-10, 7-9, 8-8 team until they figure out who's going to be the successor for Eli Manning at the quarterback position. So if you tell me they're going to trade Odell for some type of package that includes some high draft picks in order to then use that to move up in the draft to get a quarterback, that would make sense. The only thing I would say to that is the Giants are in win-now mode with a roster that's not a win-now roster. They don't have the depth on both sides of the ball to compete for a championship, but you used the 2nd overall pick last year in a running back. And when you draft a running back, as soon as he steps on an NFL field is when his prime is. So you're talking about having Saquon Barkley this productive, 2,000 yards from scrimmage for the next 7 or 8 seasons, and yet you don't know who your quarterback is going to be. So that's why I worry about the Giants getting rid of a playmaker the caliber of Odell when they have Saquon Barkley on that team. You can take full advantage of what Saquon Barkley brings to the table when you have a guy outside the numbers at receiver in Odell Beckham Jr. that dictates fronts and coverages. If you trade him away, all of a sudden life gets a lot harder for Saquon
100%.
Barkley. And I don't know that that's where you want to be if you're the Giants and still not seemingly knowing who's going to be your quarterback.
Nick, explain this to me. If they are in win now, they have their running back, they have their wide receiver if they want it. Yes, they need to work a little bit on their defense. Why not just pull the trigger, make the move at quarterback? What are we all sort of waiting for? How could he be your win now guy?
The problem is there's no, I don't mean to be flippant, but there's no quarterback tree. Where are they getting this guy from? They won too many games to get the #1 pick.
Yes.
So if they are going to move up from, I think they're 6.
They're 6.
If they're going to move up from 6 to 1, like Canny thinks you would have to do, certainly move into the top 3 to get Dwayne Haskins, well, that's going to cost you at least 1 future first-round pick. And you said, I know their defense isn't that good. Their defense is a glaring weakness. Even if Eli was good this year, this Giants team would have topped out at 9 or 10 wins because the defense was really bad. This is the argument for trading Odell. The argument for trading Odell is, listen, we need to draft a quarterback. We need 3 playmakers on defense. We don't have enough draft capital to go get it. Our defense is expensive and old. We are in a rebuild. Just because, let's not compound the error of not drafting a quarterback by doubling down on what is clearly not the correct strategy. Even if you can't get the quarterback this year, let's just say that the Cardinals want 3 first-round picks to move up to #1, and you say, I don't want to do it. You still can make the argument that starting the rebuild now, getting extra picks into the future, that can then allow you next year to get a quarterback. is the right decision. I think Odell's a great player. I think he is unfairly scrutinized in a lot of ways. I also think that a team that has a superstar running back and a superstar wide receiver, and that's it for their B quality players and above, tops out at 8 wins.
Yep.
Like I've seen this happen before. I've seen teams with Hall of Famers at those spots not be great teams because they can't fill out the rest of the roster. I would listen to it. And if I'm San Francisco, by the way, on the other side of this, it's a huge year for everyone there. For John Lynch, for Kyle Shanahan, for Jimmy Garoppolo. And you can't have George Kittle as your #1 option. So, like, I understand why they would be interested in Odell.
Yeah, and you consider the free agent market for wide receivers coming up in 2019 and the 2019 draft class for wide receivers. It's not necessarily the deepest groups. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense if you're San Francisco to explore trade options to bring in a proven commodity at the wide receiver position, somebody that can be a difference maker. And when you factor in age, I don't know that there's a receiver out there that I would take in front of Odell Beckham. He's just been that good. 4 of his first 5 seasons have been 1,000-yard reception seasons. Right. Of course, he missed the majority of last year with the ankle injury. So, I mean, it makes sense I'm not sure that it ends up getting done.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, is Andrew Luck primed for a deep playoff run? We'll break that down next on First Things First.